Captain Jake Morrison walked through the tall glass doors of the Galactic Court building on Nexus Prime. The building was huge and made of some kind of crystal that changed colors in the sunlight. He had never seen anything like it back on Earth. His boots made soft sounds on the smooth floor as he looked around at all the strange creatures moving about their business. Jake held a small computer pad in his hand. The words on it made no sense to him at all. His ship, the New Horizon, was stuck in the space dock. The Zenthari Commerce Guild said he broke some trade rules. Jake knew he did nothing wrong, but now he had to go to court to prove it. The problem was not the court case itself. The problem was what the court wanted him to do. Every paper he got back said the same weird thing. It said that any case with humans needed special protection for all the court workers. They needed something called Class A mind shields and a special protected guard. Jake had been trading in space for 5 years now. He had dealt with all kinds of alien races. Some were friendly, some were not, but none of them ever needed special protection just to be in the same room with him. It made no sense. A creature with 6 arms walked up to him. This was Counselor Thex, his lawyer. Thex was from the Vega star system. His skin was blue and he had large black eyes. When he talked, he made small clicking sounds. "Captain Morrison," Thex said, "I have been a lawyer for 40 years. I have never seen anything like this before. The court is acting very strange about your case." Jake looked at his lawyer. "What are they so scared of? I am just a human trader. I carry no weapons. I have no special powers. Why do they need all this protection?" Thex made more clicking sounds. Jake learned that this meant the alien was nervous. "I do not know, Captain, but we must follow their rules if we want to get your ship back." They walked into the main courtroom together. Jake stopped and stared. The room was nothing like the courts he had seen on Earth. Everything was behind thick glass walls. The judge's area was covered with metal barriers. Even the air seemed different, like it was being cleaned by machines. The judge appeared on a raised platform. She was an Arcturian with long silver arms that moved like water. Her name was Judge Kethmore. Jake could barely see her through all the protective glass around her seat. A huge guard stood near the judge. The guard was from the Corvan race, known for being strong fighters. But even this tough warrior wore a special helmet that covered his whole head. Small lights blinked on the helmet. Jake guessed it was some kind of protection for the guard's mind. "Before we can start," Judge Kethmore said through a speaker system, "I must make sure all mind barriers are working. Bailiff Grex 9, please. Check your mental shields." The big guard touched his helmet. "All systems working, Your Honor. Mental shields are at full power." Jake felt confused and a little angry. He turned to look at the people who came with him from his ship. Lieutenant Amy Carter sat in the back area. She was his second in command and had been with him for 3 years. Amy looked just as confused as he felt. Amy leaned forward and whispered, "Captain, what is all this about? Why are they treating us like we are dangerous?" Jake did not know what to tell her. He had never hurt anyone. His crew were good people, who just wanted to make an honest living trading between the stars. Yet everyone in this court was acting like they might attack at any moment. More court workers came in. Each one wore some kind of special equipment on their heads. Some had small metal caps. Others wore helmets like the guard. One creature that looked like a floating jellyfish had wires connected to its body. Judge Kethmore spoke again. "We will now begin the case of Zenthari Commerce Guild versus Captain Jake Morrison of Earth. But first, I must confirm that all safety measures are in place." A small robot floated over to the judge. It made beeping sounds and flashed green lights. The judge nodded. "Mental protection systems are working correctly," she announced. "We may proceed." Jake felt his face get red with anger. "Your Honor, I object to all this. We are not dangerous. We are just normal people trying to clear our names." The judge's silver arms moved in what looked like fear. "Captain Morrison, please keep your voice calm. Any strong emotions from humans can be dangerous to court staff." "Dangerous?" Jake said, his voice getting louder. "How can emotions be dangerous?" Suddenly, all the lights in the room started flashing red. A voice came over the speaker system saying, "Warning, human emotional levels rising. All staff maintain maximum protection. The guard stepped forward, his hand on some kind of weapon. Captain, you need to stay calm or we will have to remove you from the court. Jake looked around the room. Every alien in the place was staring at him with what looked like fear. Some were backing away even though they were behind protective barriers. The judge herself had moved as far back as possible. Amy stood up from her seat. This is crazy. We have not done anything wrong. Why is everyone so scared? The lights flashed red again. More warnings came over the speakers. Jake realized that, just by being upset, he and Amy were somehow causing all this panic. Judge Kethmore spoke in a shaky voice. This court will take a break. All human parties must leave the courtroom until we can increase our protection systems. Guards in heavy armor came forward. They did not point weapons at Jake and his crew, but they made it clear that they had to leave right now. As they walked out, Jake heard the judge talking to her assistant. Contact the technical department. We need stronger mind shields. The current ones are not enough for this case. Outside the courtroom, Jake sat on a bench with Amy and the rest of his crew. None of them could understand what had just happened. Captain, said Sergeant Pete Williams, I have been in the military for 10 years. I have faced enemy fire and never been treated like this. What do they think we are going to do to them? Jake shook his head. I do not know, Pete. But I am going to find out. There has to be a reason why they are so afraid of us. And until I know what that reason is, we are never going to get a fair trial. Amy looked at the courthouse around them. Aliens of all kinds walked by, doing their daily business. None of them seemed to need special protection from each other. Only humans required all these safety measures. Captain, she said, maybe we should learn more about this before we go back in there. Something is going on here that we do not understand. Jake nodded. His ship was stuck, his crew was confused, and the whole galaxy seemed to think humans were some kind of threat, just by feeling normal emotions. He had to find out why. The next day, Jake got a message that made him even more confused. The court said they needed to wait 3 more days before his case could continue. They had to install stronger protection systems. Jake could not believe it. What kind of protection did they need from a simple human trader? Jake decided he was not going to sit around and wait. He needed answers. Amy suggested they explore the courthouse building and see what they could learn. The building was huge, with many floors going both up and down into the ground. They took an elevator that went down deep under the main court area. The doors opened to show a long hallway with soft blue lights. Signs on the walls were written in many different alien languages. Jake could read some of them because of his translation device. One sign said Legal Archives, with an arrow pointing down another hallway. Jake and Amy followed the signs until they came to a big room filled with computers and strange machines. The room was quiet except for the soft humming of the machines. An unusual creature sat behind a desk near the entrance. It looked like smoke, or gas that had somehow taken shape. It changed colors slowly as it moved. When it spoke, its voice sounded like wind blowing through trees. Welcome to the archives, HFY, the creature said. I am librarian Yultan. How may I help you today? Jake walked up to the desk. My name is Captain Jake Morrison from Earth. I am trying to understand why the court needs so much protection when dealing with humans. Can you help me find information about this? The creature's colors changed to what looked like bright yellow. Jake thought this might mean the librarian was interested or excited. Ah, yes. You want to know about the human protocols, Yultan said. This is not the first time someone has asked about this. Tell me, Captain, what do you know about the Kepler Station incident? Jake looked at Amy. She shrugged her shoulders. I have never heard of any Kepler Station incident, Jake said. The librarian's form turned a darker color. That is not surprising. Your people were not told about it. Please, follow me. Yultan floated away from the desk and led them deeper into the archives. They came to a room with a large table in the center. The librarian touched something on the wall, and suddenly the air above the table filled with moving pictures. 67 years ago, Yultan began, a human trader named Ben Collins came to court here on Nexus Prime. He had a simple problem with a shipping contract. Nothing serious, just a normal business dispute. The pictures in the air showed a courtroom that looked much like the one Jake had been in, but without all the protective barriers and special equipment. The judge was named Velthara. She was from the Korthak race. Her people have natural abilities to feel what others are feeling. This usually helps them make fair decisions in court cases. Jake watched the pictures. He could see a human man standing in front of an alien judge. The judge looked like a large insect with 4 eyes and long, thin arms. Ben Collins was frustrated because the translation machines were slow. He wanted to explain his side of the story clearly. So he began to talk about his life, his family, and why this business deal was so important to him. In the pictures, Jake could see the human talking with his hands, the way people do when they really want someone to understand something important. Collins told the judge about growing up poor on Earth. He talked about his dream to travel to the stars and make a better life for his children. He explained how hard he had worked to build his small trading business. Jake nodded. This sounded like many humans he knew who had left Earth to find opportunities among the stars. As Collins spoke, Yultan continued, "Something unexpected happened to Judge Velthara." The pictures showed the alien judge beginning to shake. Her 4 eyes started to leak some kind of fluid. Her thin arms wrapped around her body as if she was in pain. The judge felt everything that Collins was feeling, the librarian explained. Every memory, every hope, every fear. She experienced his whole life story as if it was her own life. Amy stepped closer to the table. What happened to her? Judge Velthara had what the medical records call catastrophic emotional resonance cascade. She felt Collins's emotions so strongly that it changed her forever. The pictures now showed the judge after the case was over. She looked different, somehow, even though Jake could not tell exactly how. The judge ruled in Collins's favor, but that was not the strange part. After the case ended, she sold everything she owned and used the money to help build new human colonies. She spent the rest of her life working to help humans expand into space. Jake felt his stomach tighten. Are you saying that we somehow controlled her mind? No, Captain. That is what makes this so frightening to other races. Judge Velthara kept her free will. She could think clearly and make her own choices. But after feeling what it was like to be human, she wanted to help humans more than anything else. Yultan changed colors again, this time to a deep purple. That seemed sad. Her own people said she was mentally damaged. They could not understand why she cared so much about a species she had just met. But medical tests showed her brain was perfectly normal. Amy sat down in one of the chairs around the table. So what you are saying is that when other races really understand how we feel, they start to care about us too much. That is exactly right, the librarian said. After the Collins case, the courts began to study what happened. They found that humans feel emotions much more strongly than any other known species. When races with natural empathy connect with human feelings, it overwhelms them. Jake thought about this. How many times has this happened? More than you might think. The archives have records of dozens of similar cases. Trade negotiators who become unusually generous after dealing with humans, military officers who start protecting human settlements they were supposed to remove, even prison guards who develop protective feelings toward human prisoners. The pictures in the air changed to show charts and numbers. Jake could see that the pattern was everywhere humans went in the galaxy. The courts discovered that direct contact with unshielded human consciousness has a very high rate of what they call conversion among empathic species. About 7 out of 10 empaths who spend time with humans become changed by the experience. Jake looked at Amy. Now he understood why everyone in the courtroom had been so scared. They were not afraid that humans would hurt them physically. They were afraid that humans would make them care too much. So that is why they need all the protection, Amy said. They are not protecting themselves from our weapons or our anger. They are protecting themselves from our feelings. Yultan's colors shifted to bright white. Now you understand, Captain Morrison. The galaxy has learned to fear the human heart. Jake sat down heavily in a chair. His simple court case had become something much bigger and more complicated than he had ever imagined. Jake could not sleep that night. He kept thinking about what the librarian had told him. The idea that humans were changing other species just by being around them was scary. He wondered how many aliens had been affected without anyone knowing about it. The next morning, Jake decided to do more research. He contacted Dr. Lisa Grant, a human scientist who worked on Nexus Prime. She studied how different alien races thought and behaved. If anyone would know more about this problem, it would be her. They met at a small restaurant far away from the courthouse. Dr. Grant was a woman in her 40s with short brown hair and serious eyes. She wore the kind of clothes that scientists liked, with lots of pockets for tools and computers. "Captain Morrison," she said as they sat down at a quiet table, "what you found in the archives matches some very troubling research we have been doing here." She pulled out a small computer and showed him files full of charts and numbers. "It is not just happening in courtrooms. We are seeing this pattern everywhere humans go in the galaxy." Jake looked at the information on her screen. There were reports from dozens of different worlds and space stations. "What kind of pattern?" "Anywhere humans spend time with empathic or telepathic species, we see these conversions happening. Trade negotiators who start giving humans better deals than they should. Military tribunals that always rule in favor of human settlements. Even alien doctors who begin treating human patients for free." Dr. Grant scrolled through more files. Each one showed the same thing. Aliens who worked closely with humans began acting in ways that helped humans, even when it went against their own interests. "Are you telling me that we are accidentally controlling the minds of other species?" Jake asked. "No, and that is what makes this so frightening," Dr. Grant said. "We are not controlling anyone. The affected aliens can still think clearly and make their own choices. They just become overwhelmed by how deeply humans feel about everything." She showed him brain scans of aliens before and after spending time with humans. "Look at these. The brain structure stays the same. The aliens keep their intelligence and their personalities. But something fundamental changes in how they see the world." Jake studied the scans. Even though he was not a scientist, he could see that something was different in the second set of images. What exactly changes? They start to care about things the way humans do. Most species in the galaxy experience emotions in a much more controlled way than we do. When they connect with human feelings through empathy or telepathy, it is like being hit by a wave of pure emotion. Dr. Grant put away her computer and looked directly at Jake. "Captain, humans feel things more deeply than any species we have discovered. When we are happy, we are really happy. When we are sad, we are really sad. When we care about something, we care with our whole hearts." Jake thought about this. It seemed normal to him. How else would anyone feel about things? "Other species do not understand this intensity," Dr. Grant continued. "When they experience it through their natural abilities, it changes them. They start to see the universe through human eyes." "How widespread is this problem?" Jake asked. Dr. Grant looked around to make sure no one was listening to them. "Our research shows that direct exposure to unshielded human consciousness has a 73% conversion rate among empathic species. For telepaths, it is 41%. Even some purely logical species are affected when they interface with human thought patterns." Jake felt his stomach drop. "You are saying that nearly 3 out of 4 empaths who spend time with us become changed?" "That is correct. And the effect seems to be permanent. We have been tracking some cases for over 40 years, and the converted aliens never go back to their original way of thinking." Jake understood now why the galaxy treated humans with such careful distance. They were not afraid of human weapons or technology. They were afraid of human hearts. "There is more," Dr. Grant said. "We think this is why humans have been so successful in expanding through the galaxy, even though we are a young species. Everywhere we go, we accidentally create allies who want to help us succeed." She showed him a map of human colonies and trading posts throughout the galaxy. "Look at this pattern. Every successful human settlement has had significant contact with empathic species early in its development. The aliens who were affected by human emotions became our strongest supporters." Jake looked at the map. It was true. All the major human colonies were in areas where empathic aliens lived. So we have been accidentally taking over the galaxy by making other species care about us? Jake asked. In a way, yes. But it is not intentional, and it is not control in the traditional sense. The affected aliens genuinely want to help humans. They feel good about it. It makes them happy to see humans succeed. Dr. Grant leaned forward. The problem is that their own species see this as a form of mental illness. They think their people have been damaged by contact with humans. Jake understood why his court case was causing so much trouble. The aliens were not just protecting themselves from being influenced. They were protecting their entire way of life. What about my lawyer? Jake asked. Counselor Thex has been acting differently since we started working together. Dr. Grant nodded. Vegans are naturally empathic. He has probably been affected by his contact with you even though he does not realize it. How has he been acting? Jake thought about it. He has been more friendly than I expected. He asks about my family and seems to really care about winning my case. He even invited me to eat dinner with him, which he said was unusual for his species. Classic conversion symptoms, Dr. Grant said. He is experiencing human-style emotional attachment. His species normally maintains professional distance, but now he feels connected to you as a person. Jake felt terrible. I did not mean to hurt him. You did not hurt him, Captain. He is probably happier now than he has ever been. The problem is that other Vegans will see his behavior as abnormal. Dr. Grant put her computer away and stood up. Captain, your court case has become about much more than a trade dispute. You have accidentally become a test case for how the galaxy deals with human emotional influence. As they walked out of the restaurant, Jake realized that his simple problem had become something much bigger. He was not just fighting to get his ship back. He was fighting about whether humans belonged in the galaxy at all. Dr. Grant, he said, what happens if we lose? What happens if the galaxy decides we are too dangerous to be around? She looked at him with sad eyes. Then humanity might find itself isolated from the rest of the galaxy, quarantined not because we are violent but because we care too much. Jake walked back to his hotel room with a heavy heart. Tomorrow he would have to go back to court and face judges who were literally afraid of his feelings. He had no idea how to win a case like that. 3 days later, Jake returned to the courthouse. The building looked different now. There were more guards at every entrance, and new machines had been installed that scanned everyone who walked by. Jake could see workers putting up even more protective barriers in the main courtroom. When he met with Counselor Thex before the hearing, Jake noticed the changes in his lawyer right away. The Vegan was acting more like a human friend than a professional lawyer. He asked about how Jake had slept and if he was feeling worried about the case. Captain Morrison, Thex said, I have been thinking about your situation all night. I find myself very upset about the unfair treatment you have received. This is not normal for my species, but I cannot help feeling this way. Jake realized that Dr. Grant was right. His lawyer was being affected by spending time with him. Thex was experiencing human-style emotions and did not even know it was happening. Counselor, Jake said carefully, I want you to know that I appreciate everything you are doing for me. But I need to ask you something. Do you feel different than you did before we started working together? Thex made clicking sounds, which Jake now knew meant he was thinking hard. You know, Captain, I do feel different. I care about your case more than I have ever cared about any client before. I want to see justice done for you. My species usually does not form personal attachments with clients, but I find myself considering you a friend. Jake felt guilty. He had not meant to change his lawyer, but it had happened anyway. Now he faced a difficult choice. Should he tell Thex what was happening to him? Counselor, Jake said, there is something you should know about humans and empathic species. Jake explained what he had learned from the librarian and Dr. Grant. He told Thex about the conversion effect and how human emotions could permanently change aliens who had empathic abilities. Thex listened quietly. When Jake finished explaining, the Vegan sat still for a long time. Finally, he spoke. So you are telling me that my feelings of friendship toward you are not real? That they are just the result of some kind of mental contamination? No, Jake said quickly. Dr. Grant said the feelings are real. You are not being controlled. Your mind is still your own. You are just experiencing emotions the way humans do now. Thex stood up and walked around the small room they were meeting in. This explains much. I have been having thoughts and feelings that are very unusual for a vegan. I have been worried about your family back on Earth even though I have never met them. I have been angry at the court system for treating you unfairly. Jake watched his lawyer struggle with this new information. Are you upset with me for changing you? Thex stopped walking and looked at Jake. Captain, I must be honest with you, I am not upset. These new feelings are stronger than anything I have ever experienced before. They make me feel more alive. I understand now why humans are willing to travel so far from home and take such risks. You feel everything so deeply that life becomes an adventure. Jake was surprised by this answer. So you are not angry that I accidentally changed you? No, Captain. But I understand now why my people and other species are afraid of humans. If every empathic being who spends time with your species becomes like this, it would change the entire galaxy. Thex sat back down and looked at Jake with his large black eyes. But I have an idea. What if we do not fight this effect? What if we use it as part of our defense? Jake did not understand. What do you mean? The court is afraid of human emotions because they think they are dangerous. But what if we show them that human emotions are actually evidence of something good? What if the way humans make other species feel is proof that humans are worth protecting? Jake thought about this. It was a risky idea, but it might work. Captain, Thex continued, I request permission to ask the court to let you testify without any protective barriers. I want the judge and everyone else to experience what it feels like to truly understand a human. Jake's heart started beating faster. That would be very dangerous for everyone in the courtroom. What if the judge becomes affected like you have been? Then let her be affected, Thex said. Let her feel what it is like to care about justice the way humans do. Let her understand why you became a traitor and why you are fighting so hard to clear your name. Jake realized that his lawyer was suggesting something that had never been tried before. Instead of hiding human emotions, they would show them openly to the court. Counselor, if we do this and it goes wrong, it could make things much worse for all humans in the galaxy. The court might decide that we are too dangerous to be allowed anywhere near other species. Thex nodded. That is true. But if we do nothing, you will lose your case anyway. The court cannot give you a fair trial when they are too afraid to listen to you properly. Jake walked to the window and looked out at the busy streets of Nexus Prime. Aliens from dozens of different worlds were going about their daily lives. He thought about all the humans who had left Earth to build a new life among the stars. Were they all doomed to be treated as dangerous outcasts? There is another problem, Jake said. Even if the judge agrees to hear me without barriers, the experience might hurt her. I do not want to damage anyone's mind. Captain, Thex said, you did not damage my mind. You opened it to new possibilities. Maybe that is what the galaxy needs. Jake made his decision. All right, Counselor, let us ask the court to let me testify without protection. But I want everything recorded. If this goes wrong, I want there to be evidence of what really happened. They walked together toward the courtroom. Jake knew that he was about to do something that would change everything. He was either going to prove that humans deserved a place in the galaxy, or he was going to make things much worse for his entire species. As they entered the courtroom, Jake could see that even more protective equipment had been installed. The barriers around the judge were thicker, and there were more guards wearing mental shields. Everyone was preparing for what they thought would be a dangerous encounter with human emotions. Jake took a deep breath. In a few minutes, he would ask the court to remove all those protections and let him speak from his heart. He had no idea what would happen next. Judge Kethmore entered the courtroom behind her thick protective barriers. The silver tentacles on her head moved nervously as she looked at all the new safety equipment that had been installed. The courtroom was now filled with machines that hummed softly, creating mental shields to protect everyone from human emotions. Jake stood up when the judge entered. He could barely see her through all the glass and metal barriers. This was the moment he had been preparing for. His heart beat fast as he thought about what he was going to ask. Your Honor, Counselor Thex said, Before we begin today's proceedings, my client has an unusual request to make. Judge Kethmore's tentacles stopped moving. What kind of request, counselor? Jake stepped forward. Your Honor, I request permission to testify without any protective barriers. I want the court to hear my testimony in the most honest way possible. The entire courtroom became silent. Jake could hear the guards shifting nervously behind him. One of the court workers made a soft, gasping sound. Captain Morrison, Judge Kethmore said, her voice shaking slightly. What you are asking is completely against all established safety protocols. The risk to court personnel would be unacceptable. With respect, Your Honor, Jake replied. Those protocols assume that human emotions are a form of contamination. But what if they are actually evidence? What if the way we make other species feel when they truly understand us is proof of who we really are? Jake's crew member, Sergeant Pete Williams, stood up from the back of the courtroom. Your Honor, we never asked to have this effect on other species. But we are not going to apologize for caring deeply about doing what is right. More red warning lights began flashing around the room. The machines detected that human emotions were getting stronger. Guards moved closer, but they did not point their weapons. They seemed confused about what to do. Judge Kethmore was quiet for a long time. Her tentacles moved in patterns that Jake had learned meant she was thinking very hard about something difficult. Captain Morrison, she finally said, if I allow this and if the experience affects my mental state, it could end my career as a judge. My own species might consider me damaged and unfit for duty. Jake nodded. I understand the risk, Your Honor. That is why I want everything recorded. If this proceeding results in any changes to your mental state, let it serve as evidence for future research into human and alien relations. Amy Carter stood up next to Pete. Your Honor, humans have been traveling among the stars for over 60 years now. In all that time, we have never intentionally hurt anyone with our emotions. We cannot help feeling deeply about everything we encounter. It is just who we are. The judge looked around the courtroom at all the protective equipment and nervous guards. Jake could see her thinking about how much fear and preparation was needed just to be in the same room with a few humans. Very well, Judge Kethmore said at last. I will allow limited testimony under maximum recording protocols. All court sessions will be documented for future xenopsychological research. If this proceeding results in my mental compromise, let it serve as evidence of what really happens when our species interact without barriers. The court workers began shutting down the protective systems. Jake watched as the barriers around the judge slowly lowered. The mental shields were turned off one by one. For the first time since entering the courthouse, Jake was in the same room with alien beings who had no protection from his emotions. Jake walked to the witness area. There were no barriers around him now. He could see Judge Kethmore clearly, for the first time. She was a beautiful creature with silver tentacles that glowed softly in the courtroom lights. Her large eyes watched him with a mixture of fear and curiosity. Captain Morrison, the judge said, please tell the court about the dispute with the Zenthari Commerce Guild. Jake took a deep breath. He decided to tell not just the facts of the case, but the whole story of why it mattered to him. Your Honor, the Zenthari Guild claims that I violated trade regulations when I delivered medical supplies to the colony on Kepler 7. They say I did not have proper permits for emergency relief supplies. Jake's voice became stronger as he talked about what had really happened. But what they do not mention is that there were sick children on that colony. A disease had broken out, and the regular supply ships were not scheduled to arrive for 3 weeks. Those children would have died if someone did not bring medicine right away. As Jake spoke, he noticed that Judge Kethmore's tentacles were beginning to glow brighter. Her large eyes seemed more focused on him than before. I am not a big corporation like the Zenthari Guild, Jake continued. I am just one man with one ship, trying to make an honest living among the stars. But when I heard about those sick children, I could not just ignore it and follow the proper paperwork procedures. Jake thought about his own childhood on Earth, growing up in a small town where everyone helped each other when there was trouble. He remembered his parents teaching him that doing the right thing was more important than following rules that did not make sense. I loaded my ship with every medical supply I could afford and flew straight to Kepler 7. I did not think about permits or regulations. I only thought about children who needed help. When I got there, the colonists were so grateful that they cried. The medicine saved 12 children who would have died otherwise. Judge Kethmore was leaning forward now. Her tentacles were glowing with patterns Jake had never seen before. Around the courtroom, other aliens were also showing signs of being affected by Jake's words even without empathic abilities. The Zenthari Guild is angry because I did not pay their licensing fees for emergency supplies. They want to fine me more money than I make in a year and take away my trading license. But Your Honor, if following their rules means letting children die, then their rules are wrong. Jake's voice became emotional as he talked about what this case meant to him. I came to space because I dreamed of exploring the galaxy and meeting new species. I wanted to prove that humans could be good neighbors and trusted partners. Every day I try to show that we deserve a place among the stars. Judge Kethmore's tentacles were now glowing so brightly that they lit up her whole section of the courtroom. Jake could see that she was experiencing every emotion he felt as he told his story. We make mistakes, Jake said, because we are still learning how to live in a galaxy full of ancient civilizations. But every mistake we make comes from trying too hard to do right by everyone we meet. We cannot help but feel deeply about everything we encounter. It is not a weapon or a tool. It is just who we are. Jake finished his testimony and stood quietly, waiting for the judge's response. Judge Kethmore was silent for a long time. Her tentacles continued to glow with soft, beautiful light. Finally, she spoke. Her voice sounded different than before, warmer somehow even through the translation system. Captain Morrison, in 40 years on this bench, I have heard thousands of cases involving hundreds of different species. I have seen evidence presented with logic, with cunning, with desperation, and with calculation. But today, for the first time, I have seen evidence presented with love. She paused, and Jake could see that she was changed by what she had experienced. The Zenthari Commerce Guild's complaint is dismissed. Your actions saved lives, and no regulation should punish someone for that. Judge Kethmore stood up, her tentacles still glowing. Furthermore, this court recommends a complete review of how we handle cases involving humans. Perhaps it is not humanity that needs to be contained behind barriers. Perhaps the rest of us need to learn how to care as deeply as you do. The courtroom erupted with noise as aliens talked excitedly about what they had just witnessed. Jake felt tears in his eyes as he realized that he had won more than just his case. He had won acceptance for his entire species. Amy ran up to him and hugged him. Captain, you did it. You showed them who we really are. Jake looked around the courtroom at all the aliens who were talking and arguing about what had happened. He knew that this decision would change everything for humans in the galaxy. As they left the courthouse, Jake thought about all the humans who were traveling among the stars, trying to build new lives. Now they would not have to hide who they were or apologize for caring too much. They could be themselves and let their hearts guide them. The galaxy was about to learn that the most powerful force in the universe was not weapons or technology. It was the simple human ability to care deeply about doing what was right.